Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our EGM Securities update. We've got Gaurav in Dubai, who's going to give us a perspective on what to expect this week. Of course, last week there was drama, there were twists and turns. Markets sold off even in the US. We saw some pretty dynamic moves. Gaurav, what's in store for us this week?
Good to speak to you once again, Ali Khan. Actually, you're asking a good question. We're expecting to see a lot more of the same through the trading week this week. Now, we've seen the European equity markets open up jittery at best. Once again, market participants are focusing on 4 or 5 key stories which have been driving market sentiment over the past few weeks and few months, in fact. Of course, the ongoing Brexit issues have been driving the British pound. Remember, we have the EU summit kicking off on October 17th. Many believe this to be the instance where the EU and the UK will be finalizing the terms of the exit deal, although we expect to see it not to be delivered at this particular summit and a little bit later, probably at the early parts of November, as Theresa May tries to navigate through some domestic issues within her government. Along with this, of course, the ongoing US-Sino trade wars has been weighing into investor sentiment. We're seeing days of gains and days of losses as we see further developments coming out of China. Of course, in relation to that, the overall Chinese growth story has also weighed down investor sentiment.
So Gaurav, given the on-off story that we keep hearing with the European Union, it seems to me that eventually the EU will make a deal with Theresa May. I don't think they fancy the idea of dealing with Boris. Is that going to, in your opinion, is that going to be a trigger for a big reprice for sterling, or do you think we've pretty much now absorbed any bounce that could come out of that news?
Well, I think if we do come out with a situation whereby it's seen as if the markets perceive it to be a favorable deal for the UK, I definitely see a lot more room on the upside for a move potentially upwards of maybe 1.4 or 1.41. So long story short, no, I don't think the full move has been priced in as yet. That's also on the upside as well as the downside. So I think markets are really on edge right now. They really don't have a clear way of which way this is going to play out, and as a result of this, we're seeing that very choppy pricing action in the British pound crosses.
Can I now take you to gold, because that had been chopping around in a range for quite a while. A lot of people had gotten bearish, and then we saw this big spike higher last week. It seemed was still strong last time I looked. Are you buying into this gold situation? Is it Ben Bernanke again that, people are now getting worried about really bad outcomes that could happen out there, whether it's in the trade war, whether it's in Saudi Arabia? There's a lot of, concern around geopolitical concern. Do you see this going higher? Do you think we're on the cusp of a big move? How are you reading it?
It's a very interesting performance that gold had through the end of last week. We've seen gold prices stagnating between 1180 and 1220 since the beginning of August, and as you had correctly pointed out, it smashed through that upper resistance that we had penned at 1220 levels, and now we're probably seeing gold extending probably as high as about 1260, where I foresee very strong selling resistance to come in and rein in some of those gains. To be quite honest, Ali Khan, I'm not buying into this gold rally. I don't understand or see any main reasons why we would see this sudden rally. If you look, again, all those 5-6 themes that we've addressed earlier on in the segment, the trade wars, the Brexit issues, the ongoing issues between EU and Italy, these are all stories that have been building over the past 2-3 months, the same 2-3 months where gold has been stuck in that range. So that has not led to this spike higher that we experienced at the end of last week. So I think this could be a bit of a technical covering. I think we have seen the height of it, and again, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a move towards 1260 before we see a correction back to below 1220 levels.
Gaurav, I think, might I just quickly take your perspective on the oil markets, because, we've seen a lot of activity there, obviously, a lot of issues in the background, with Trump threatening to punish the Saudi Crown Prince. Saudi Arabia being the biggest supplier of oil to the world markets. How are you reading that story? We're not at the year's highs. We've come back a little bit. What do you foresee? I remember a couple of weeks ago everyone was talking about $100. Is that still on the horizon in your opinion?
Well, $100 may seem a bit optimistic. I am a bull when it comes to long-term crude prices. I do expect to see crude prices solidify and average above between $80 to $85 a barrel through 2019. With a more short-term view, I think it's a bit risky right now to initiate any long or short positions in the West Texas intermediary contract due to the fact that we need to see how this Saudi and US situation plays out over the next few days. Although if we do see a sharper correction towards that $70 mark, I think this provides probably the safest level to look at initiating into long positions. But I think at the current price, we want to see a little bit more downside before we look at entering into those longs.
And finally, is there anything else we need to be looking out for, Gaurav, from your perch? Is there anything else that you're looking at this week in particular?
Along with the EU summit kicking off on October 17th, I am also going to be looking at the UK inflationary data, which is due out on Wednesday. We're not expecting to see any big shifts in that reading. It should come largely in line with expectations. But again, Ali Khan, if we see a slight uptick on that number, as we have seen in the past, especially with the UK data points, we could expect to see some fresh buying coming into the pound. Of course, on the flip side, any drawdown in the number, which we're not expecting, we would see weakness into the British pound. So do keep an eye out on that Wednesday inflation reading.
It's a pleasure speaking to you as always, Gaurav. Thank you for making the time. We look forward to speaking to you later in the week.
Thanks for your time, Ali Khan. Always a pleasure.